Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're going to be unboxing and setting up the new Xbox Series X today. These, of course, are in demand, but I managed to find one at retail. I didn't have to pay a scalper or anything. I did, though, buy a bundle, which I think increased my chances of getting this thing in. So I did pay more, but I got more. And I got in the first component yesterday, which was the console itself, and then a few of the other things that come with the bundle will be arriving hopefully later on in the week. But we're going to get this thing set up and operating here in just a second. But I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I paid for this with my own funds. All of the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one is paying for this unboxing, nor is anyone reviewing it or approving it before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this new Xbox is all about. So let's break into this thing here. There's some tape here that seals it up. And we'll start working our way into the box. And it looks like, oh, I see, there's some tape on the bottom here too. So we'll get all these pieces of tape off of it and have at it. And I have owned the last, actually, I've owned all the Xboxes now, because I had the Xbox 360, which came out in 2006. Before that, I had the original Xbox. And then I actually have had 3 different versions of the Xbox One. I have the One X, the S, and the original. Long story, but there you go. All right, so let's take a look inside here. And we've got a little band on here that says Power Your Dreams. And I think this is actually the console itself. It's not that big, actually. One of the things Microsoft's done very well is making their consoles a lot smaller. It is, though, rather heavy. There's definitely some weight to this. So let's get the console unwrapped here, and then we'll work on the rest of the stuff as we go. So we'll undo its little band here and take a look at what's inside the plastic. So here you go. Now, the console can go in 2 different positions. So it's kind of like a monolith here. You can have it sit vertically, like so, or horizontally, like this. And it looks like there's rubber feet. So this is like a big rubber foot here on the bottom. And then there's rubber feet on the side. So those will, be visible when it's standing up like this, but shouldn't be too bad here. And that's how it goes. So we'll probably keep it vertically for now. I've got a monitor we'll put on the desk here in a minute. Pretty big cooling system here. So the fan will exhaust, I believe, upwards. And you've got your drive here for the games. Got a button just like the other ones do, a controlling pairing thing. Got USB over there. And yeah, looks pretty cool. And you have a storage expansion here in the back, which is different than USB. And I'll give you another view of this from the overhead. Because this uses some newer solid-state technology, so you can put in a faster drive with one of the Xbox NVMe drives that you can get. And then you've got your Ethernet there, HDMI out, power, 2 more USB 3 ports, and a Kensington lock too, so you can lock it down. This would be good if you're going to college or going someplace where you get a lot of people coming back and forth. You can get one of these Kensington locks to lock it down so it's hard to walk away with. All right, so we have a 4K monitor up here on the desk, and we've got the console back on the desk as well. And what I'm going to do here is start connecting up things. Now we're going to, of course, plug the HDMI cable here into the HDMI output. And we have this connected to my video system right now. Again, the power supply is built in, so we're going to connect power up right here. But before I do that, I do want to connect up my Ethernet. Now this will work over Wi-Fi. But one of the things that this console does is consume a lot of data, especially if you're downloading new games to it. And whenever possible, I try to get my stuff connected to my local network via a wire versus wireless. And that will usually give you better performance for multiplayer and, of course, give you better performance when you're downloading games. If you have the ability to get Ethernet to your console, definitely do this over Wi-Fi whenever you can. You'll definitely have a much better experience. We've done some videos on these Mocha devices, which allow you to extend your network with just your cable TV wiring, and those are a good alternative if you don't have Ethernet handy. And we're going to plug the power in here. Now, another thing to note here is that you do have 2 USB ports on the back, and if you have an existing Xbox console and have maybe an external hard drive plugged into it, if you unplug that drive and plug it into the new console, it should work and recognize all the games on it. If that, of course, is depending on you having the same account on this Xbox as the one you were taking the drive from. And that might be a very quick way to migrate over. But the games will run faster and load faster if you install it onto the internal drive here or plug in one of the expansions. So what we're going to do now is power it up and see what happens here. This might take a little bit. I'm guessing we'll probably have to do an update once it boots up as well. And I have a good view of the monitor here, even though the console is kind of blocking things on the display. But it looks like we are booting up here, and let's see what happens. All right, so we are up and running. So it looks like it wants me to configure with the Xbox app, which might actually be faster for me. So I'm going to do that and get this thing going, get all my account stuff typed in, and we'll go from there. All right, so we're going to go over here to the app, the Xbox app. I logged into my Microsoft account on it. I'm going to go over here to set up a console. And there's a code currently on my TV, and it's saying that right now I've got 10 characters. So I'm going to select this code, and I'm going to type in the code that I see on my television, or my monitor in this case. So let me type that in real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, so we're going to connect to console now, and we will join its Wi-Fi, it looks like, and my phone now is setting it up. Now this will work the same on Android as it will on iOS. All right, so now we're connected to the console, and it's telling me to continue setup on the phone. So we're going to go back to my phone here, and we'll click Next, and I'll click Next here again. And of course now it's going to need an update, an 831 megabyte update. And again, this is why you might want to plug into the Ethernet, right? So we're going to have it go out and do that. And it's going to download its update, and you can see that happening here. Looks like it, there it goes. So now it's going to update that. So we'll give that a minute or two, and we'll be back when it is done updating. All right, so the update is done, and now on my phone it's asking me how I want to do things. And I can put it into an energy saving mode, which will be slower to start up, or I can have instant on, which will use more electricity. And because I have a house full of stuff here, I'm going to select energy saving. I can wait a minute or two to save some money on my electric bill and probably do better for the environment there, so we'll do that. And then we have the option here to keep the console up to date and have all the games and apps update automatically as well, so maybe we'll do that, and we'll hit finish. Now, one thing to think about when you're buying one of these consoles is that you have a choice between physical media, games on a disc, or getting games digitally. And one of the things that a lot of us are dealing with across the country are data caps from our service providers. And the games for these new consoles are pretty big. So just keep that in mind, that all these updates and all this stuff that's going to happen automatically in the background is going to eat up against your data cap. And you might be surprised by how much data these things download and potentially could impact your bill. So just be aware of that. All right, so now we're going to turn on my controller here. Me Nishka is my name that I use on Xbox Live. I've been using that for a number of years. My cousin had a cat named Nishka, and that's how the whole thing came about. We're going to update the controller now. It looks like the controller needs an update, so we're going to have it get its firmware update delivered to it. And let's see what happens here. And it is applying the update to the controller. Yeah, so even your controllers need to get a firmware update from time to time. So we'll let that finish up here, and we'll be back when it's done. All right, so here we are on the main screen, and one thing that I would suggest you do if you're curious about your TV settings is just go over to the settings gear icon here and go to TV and display options. Now you'll see that mine has detected 4K UHD, and remember, this monitor doesn't have HDR or any of the other fancy stuff on board. And if we go over here to 4K TV details, it'll show me what the TV, or in this case a monitor, is capable of. So you might want to take a look at this just to make sure that the Xbox has detected everything that your TV supports, and you can go into some of the advanced modes here and force different things to try to get the TV working the way you want. I think that's going to be the big thing that might trip some people up, especially if you have an older 4K television. I found the older ones tend to not support some of the HDR modes as easily as the new ones do. So you might spend a little bit of time in there getting things going. So let's back out to the main menu here. And one of the things that I love about the Xbox is Game Pass. And I've been a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber for quite a while now because I get a lot of value out of it. And I think most of the new Xbox consoles come with a trial period, so you can play around with it a bit. But there's just a ton of content here. And what they do is they give you most of the Microsoft library in addition to a lot of other games. And you can see we've got stuff from the Xbox 360 era. We've got new stuff, old stuff, things that are just coming out will often be here as well, especially some of the Microsoft first-party titles. And they're always adding stuff to the mix. So it's a really good thing to play around with, even on a trial basis, to see if you might like it. One of the things you can do on some of the games that are on Xbox Game Pass for a short period of time, you'll be able to buy the games at a discount on their way out, so you can retain the game longer or permanently, as the case may be. I do prefer to buy games physically so I can resell them again, but for games that I never really would have bought before, I found Game Pass to be really, really useful, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. Now, one of the things that I love about the Xbox consoles is that they really try to allow you to play the older games in addition to the newer games. And in the case of this console, there's some games that are enhanced for this version that still work on the old one. So you might own games that have been upgraded that you can just carry over here with the new features. And if you're looking for a way to quickly figure out which games take advantage of the new console, a viewer in my chat room, Mark Dell, had a very good suggestion, and that is to hit the Xbox button here and then go over to My Games and Apps. And then what we're going to do here is go to See All, and you'll get a list of everything that you already own on the console. And then you can also browse through Game Pass, for example, too. So let's dive into Game Pass real quick. I'm curious, which games work with this new console that are specifically for the X and the S? So what I did here is I just selected Group by Console Type. And now I've got the optimized games here front and center. And I can download any one of these and be assured that those games will be good to go with my new console. But all these other ones will work also, and they might actually look better depending on the TV that you're hooking this thing up to, because this will upscale some of the older games, especially some of the Xbox 360 games too will often get some nice enhancements here. So this is a good way to more quickly organize things. Now again, we're looking at just the Game Pass library here, but if I go back to the menu we were on before, all the games that I own, I can also search this by console type. Now, none of the games that I own are currently enhanced for the Xbox Series X or S here, except Fortnite. But again, I can more easily just sort through the games that I have already in my library this way also. And eventually, I think I might start seeing more games pop up in that optimized section. Now, one thing I want to mention here is the size of the games that the enhancements will ultimately require. So as you can see here, right now we're pulling down about 82 gigabytes from the Microsoft servers here for Forza Horizon 4. And that's just one game. And that, of course, is not only going to eat into your data cap, it's also going to just take a while to get these games installed. So if you're expecting to give this as a gift, just make sure there's some time in the day to get some of these titles downloaded. Depending on your internet connection, some games may deliver faster than others. And right now I've got a game running in the background, so it actually slows down the data rate in which it downloads when a game is being played. By the way, I have a green screen up behind me because we're going to show a couple of little gameplay things in a second. There are some games that, even though they come on disc, have huge updates, and then some of the older games that you might have from the Xbox 360 also have to download updates as well. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to push down here. Now, one of the things that my friend Mark Dell in the chat room suggested, though, is getting an external hard drive as cold storage so you don't have to re-download these games in the future. So, for example, when Forza Horizon 4 finishes downloading, we'll have it on the internal SSD of the console. But I might want to move that to an external hard drive when I stop playing it. And then if I come back to it a few months later, I can just copy it back over from the external hard drive versus having to download it all over again. And that's one way you can mitigate some of the data usage on your account. But again, just be prepared for a lot of data consumption, especially in the early days of your console ownership as you're bringing all those new games onto it. Now, a cool thing about the new Xbox consoles here is that they have something called Quick Resume. So right now I am in one of the enhanced games. This one is called Ori. And if I hit the Xbox button here and switch to another game that I've got loaded, when I click on Burnout Revenge, you'll see here that it's got this thing called Quick Resume at the top of the screen. And what it will do is basically bring me right back to where I left off in the game, like literally right where I left off when I hit the button. And I can easily switch between games without having to quit them first, and it will, in most cases, retain what I was doing last. So if I go back now to Ori here, there is a bit of a splash screen wait, but that quick resume is going to pick up pretty much right where I left off. That is really cool. And we were able to do this with an Xbox 360 game running in backwards compatibility. Really cool stuff. All right, one last thing to look at today, and that is backwards compatibility. We did see an Xbox 360 game running, but I've got another one here. This one I actually got at Blockbuster. I never returned it, but they allowed you to buy the game by just not returning it at that stage of their existence. And this one's called Black, and this was a first-person shooter that ran on the original Xbox. And this box has been behind me on the set here for a long time. So let's put this in and see if it's going to work here. So we're going to stick that in the drive there. Now, if the game is compatible, what it will do is go and download a package from the Microsoft Store. And you do have to have the game disc installed in the drive in order for these games to work. So you can see here we are doing an install now. It is, in some cases, able to copy that data over from the disk. I found with the Xbox 360 games that it actually downloads them from the store, and the disk becomes kind of like a key. And if the disk isn't in the drive, it's going to ask you for it, even if you're doing the quick resume feature as well. And we'll wait for that to install, and now we are good to go, and we can play Black in 4K. So we'll let this thing boot up here. We got the original Xbox graphic here loading up as the game begins. That's a pretty cool flashback to the old days, the good old days of the original Xbox. And here we go. We've got it running. Let's jump into the game real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, so here we are playing the game here. It looks great, even though the graphics are slightly dated. They're nice and sharp here at 4K. It's running just perfectly. So the OG Xbox games that are compatible, I think, should work out pretty well. There's a lot of them on the Microsoft Store. You'll find them through Game Pass, of course, and you might also have some of the games with gold in your library, too, from the old Xbox days. So take a look and see what you got available to play there, but all in good stuff. So let's try this quick resume thing again. We'll go back to Ori. I was calling it Ori before, and some folks on the chat said that was not correct, but looks like quick resume here is still working. And yep, we're right where we left off there. And let's see if we can jump back to that OG Xbox game here. And it looks like, yep, quick resume works there too. Good stuff. And it looks like we're coming back. Perfect. How about that? That is really, really neat. Now, one thing people were wondering about was the fan noise and the heat. And so far, now we haven't really pushed this thing to its limits yet, but it's been very quiet here sitting on the desk. It's not generating all that much heat either. So I think it'll be pretty quiet. It's got a very big fan in there, and the bigger the fan, the more air it can move at a slower speed. And I think that's why it's not all that noisy. So it's definitely not as noisy as my original Xbox One console, and it's certainly a lot quieter than my Xbox 360 was as well. So far, so good on that. And let me know what you would like to see in an upcoming video about the new console here. There's been a lot of reviews online, so I'd love to be able to answer questions of things that haven't been effectively answered yet on other channels. So let me know what we should do with this thing in the future. We'll definitely be doing more with it as new items come out to use with it. So stay tuned. We'll have a lot more on the Xbox Series X to come. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Jim Peter, Tom Albrecht, and Chris Allegretta. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.